Hey, this is Adam with Productivity Academy, and thank you everybody in the Real World Productivity Growth Group. And today I've got some really good questions. We're going to be talking about three of the best habits that really productive people have, some of the best apps you can use, and then what books are good for like increasing your productivity, things like that. Before we get into that, I was going to say if you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, be sure you do that. You can just go over to YouTube, type in Productivity Academy, or I'll pop a link on here as well. And then also be sure to check out the guidebook. So I've taken a lot of what I've talked about and condensed it down into something really not so much short, although it is about 25 pages, I think is what it ended up being. Taking a lot of that information and really compressing it, because I found that I don't necessarily need a full book, like something with hundreds of pages, to describe how you can really set yourself up for a solid foundation. I think the continuation of that and maybe some of the specifics, like if you went in and said, okay, I need to take my entire business and develop the processes and all that, that can be a huge topic. But personally, to get yourself started with a daily review and the really important aspects of that, condense that down into the guidebook and something that's literally the cost of a cup of coffee. And my hope is that people will grab that, get themselves started, and then that puts them on a, kind of an even playing ground so that they have the base foundation to go on and try to tackle some of these bigger things or take on some of these really cool productivity tools. But if you don't have the right stuff in place already, then it's not going to work as well for you. So, all right, let's get into it. So the very first question today is, what are, if I had my questions in order, what are three habits that highly productive people have on a daily basis? Okay, I think there's, I had to narrow this down to three, but I think that's good. I think having these narrow focus on what it is that you want to focus on, and things that I've seen from asking other people who I consider to be highly productive and people who are organized, as well as things that I've incorporated into myself. These would boil down to the following. One, having a daily review or planning session. Okay, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this. You can do this in the morning as a planning session. You can do this in the evening as a review session. You can do both. You can break it apart. But having that discipline as well as the habit to do this will open up a lot of opportunities for yourself. One, you're going to get better about using your time because you're consciously working at identifying how you're spending your time. All right, so it's doing the ordinary, but doing it extraordinarily well, because everybody knows, well, I'm planning my day, or I've got these on my to-do list, but the time you spend, just the 5, 10, 15 minutes, you spend planning that out over time, you're going to get much better at using your time and then seeing, hey, what else can I do? Can I batch tasks? Can I prioritize better? Can I work on specific projects for one day and then move on another day? There's a lot of things you can do, and people who don't take the time to look at this are never going to get as much out of this. Additionally, if you can incorporate a review in the sense of past tense, so you could say, I'm planning my day, but then I'm looking at yesterday. What worked well? What didn't? What could I improve on? And being honest with yourself is just incredibly powerful. All right, the second habit would be delegating or deleting, okay? And this just means going through your tasks and saying, hey, what do I got here? Okay, I've got these 5 things. I've only got time for 3 of them. Is there something I can delegate? Do I have an employee? Can I hand this off to a family member? Can I put it off to another day? Okay, we try not to do that. That's kind of the last choice, but maybe it makes sense. Maybe you've got a time block that you've got for like this other project. Put it there. Don't do it today. And then delete. You know what? Is it that important? Is someone trying to get in touch with me? Do I have to respond? Okay, is it not that important? Is this task just a task that I made because it came to mind? Great. Take a solid look at it. Is it important? Is it something that just needs to be done, or is it urgent because it just happened? Maybe I can file that in my notes for stuff to look at once a month. And then if it's important, I'll definitely know that, okay, I'll actually get to that. And then the third one would be guarding your time and being strict with yourself about your own time. And this doesn't mean you have to be mean about it with other people, but start with yourself. And when you say you're giving yourself 30 minutes to do a task, stick to it. Okay? Be on time. Don't be late to meetings. but then turn that around, and you should expect that from other people. And why I said take care of yourself first, because other people are not going to respect your time if you don't respect your own time. So when you have a meeting, you do your hardest to keep it to the time that you allotted, okay? If you're using someone else's time, if you said, hey, I need 10 minutes of your time, then stick to it. Don't stay there for 20 minutes and take up more of their time. And I think that will definitely help you in all the other areas. And it can be a tough one, but again, taking care of your own time first will help you deal with other people trying to use your time. And if they see how well you manage your own time, then I guarantee you that that's going to follow over into how they treat you. So I think those are 3 great habits that highly productive people have on a daily basis, and something that we can all work on and incorporate into our own lives. Okay, and question number 2. What are some of the best personal productivity apps that people use? Okay, there's definitely a lot of apps that could be used, but this is personal preference. But there are some that are based on really highly acclaimed and well-used apps. You can go, for example, into the app stores for like Android and iOS and see which of these apps have like huge install user bases. Okay, and that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect for you. It just means that at least there's a large user base. There's probably development going on, and it's been used for a while. You can see how long they've been around. Okay, so for myself, it's Todoist is one of the best I've found to-do lists, and I use it with my assistant as well. I think it's really handy, and it's very easy to track. It's on all the platforms. It's just easy is the word I like to use. Focuster is another one that's newer. I'm a big fan of it. I love that it ties into the calendar automatically. So, for example, you have your to-do list in Focuster, but you tie in your Google Calendar, and it automatically slots in your tasks that you assign based on how much time you give them into your calendar. So that's really handy. If you're going all digital, I highly suggest that you do that. Myself, I'm sticking right now with the Best Self Journal. Pop that up. And so I'm writing out my day and doing some time blocking that way. But Focuster, I still do use it. And for anyone who wants to be digital with their to-do list and integrating and looking at their time and their day, I highly suggest using that. And then lastly, Evernote. Okay, I think Evernote is amazing. I don't use it in the GTD method. I use it as a template area for like meetings and webinars, and then also as kind of a brain dump for, okay, do I have something on my mind? I'll type it out in Evernote, give it a tag and a title, or if I see something, I'll take a picture of it, and same thing, give it a tag and a title, and then that's part of my daily review process, just like these other apps. It's pointless if you just have like Evernote and you're just filling it with stuff and you never do anything with it. You need to incorporate it into your daily review, weekly review, however you do it, so that you can say, okay, what's the actual process for this? If I put something into Evernote, then what? Do you daily go through it? Do you file it? Do you have folders? And when do you do that? How does it happen? So laying that stuff out is something you can build as you go, but definitely you just start with a plan and then you adapt from there. So what you don't want to have happen is just to have these tools and then no plan for how you implement them, because that's the problem. They're just tools, and a lot of them can help you, but if you don't have that basis of how to use them or a process behind it, then they can become a problem. Okay, last question is, which self-improvement books do you recommend for time management and productivity in life? Okay, there's a lot of really good ones, and it's definitely subjective, depends on the author, of course, and how you feel, but I have my personal favorites and I'd love to share these. Deep Work by Cal Newport is a great book, and actually I'm trying to get him onto the podcast for Productivity Academy to talk about this, because he's in the academic world and talks about how he has set it up in his life to use these big time blocks and to really dive deep into topics and to be able to work without distractions. I think this is a really good idea. I think it's a lot harder for people outside of that world to get multiple hour time blocks, but it's still possible. And then how anyone else can use this. And I think it's a good reminder that you need to really dive into your projects, to cut down the distractions. I mean, it sounds simple, but like, how do you spend 3 hours on one project? When's the last time you actually spent 3 hours without distractions working on one thing? And for most of us, it's probably been a really, really long time, or never. maybe it was back in school writing a paper or something. So incredibly good book, well written, and interesting to read, and will give anyone some ideas, I think, on how they can approach their use of time. Second book is by a friend of mine, and I am going to pop a link in here. I'm just making myself a quick note here, but it's by Catherine Jones. It's available on Kindle, and it's called Automate Your Routines, Guarantee Your Results. Okay, this is really cool. I know she wrote this when I saw her last year, and then I actually just read it now about a month ago, and it was really good. Okay, it's written very well. It's very easy to read, and it's about the title, right? Automating your routines to create results. And she goes into great detail and provides some help about how to do that and stuff. What may seem as simple as like, hey, I want to have a really healthy morning. How do I do that? How do I feel better? How do I make myself eat a healthy breakfast instead of like swinging by McDonald's on the way to work? And going through and saying, here's the literal steps you can do to get control of that, and then to make it easy for yourself, and if not just good and fun, that you no longer have to worry about it. So really powerful. Suggest it, quick read. You can implement something from that like the day you start reading that. And lastly, for my recommendations, I would say Work the System by Sam Carpenter. I believe there was an update in 2017, and it's a fantastic book on processes. And what I would say is anybody can use this, especially online entrepreneurs. I think this is really important that we understand that although you're at your computer, you can direct people, you could be on Skype and Slack and Hangouts and this and that, you still need to have processes for your business, for your life, and how you can control these and get a lot more out of it. And so it does tell a personal story as well of how he came across his systems, and then goes into here's how you can implement these and gives examples of them. And just for example, it's how you can make a business run better, which is nice, okay? And that makes you make more money, which is great. But also how that results in a better business, how customers like it more, how you can retain your employees for longer because they're happy, because they know what's going on. They know what systems work, they know what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, instead of kind of flying by night and, you being in control and having to manage and, do all that. That setting up these processes and how you do it is very important and can really be liberating and literally make your life better and other people's life better. So highly recommend that read. A lot of good information. And then from that book, I think you can go into more specifics and process stuff if you're into it, getting into project management and how that all works. So hopefully that was helpful. Those are some really good questions. The apps one's always interesting. I mean, I love talking about apps, but it is definitely a personal preference, and I suggest trying apps, but I think it's good. You can look and try some new ones. I know I said look at the ones that have a big install base, and I think that's just to be safe, to make sure if you're starting and you want to try something that's a good one, hasn't been around for a while. When was it last updated? But, if you want, devote yourself some time to trying new apps. That's what I do. And I like, sharing the information with them. I'll try some new email app. It's got to be better than the last. I don't just try it and then make it part of my systems, but I'll give an app a week or two and test it out and see if it works. And a little bit of that each month goes a long way. That's how I find new systems or bring new things in for our teams. So, all right, I'll catch you next week.